Hello and welcome to Invisible Walls, episode 276. My name is Ryan Stevens. I am joined by Daniel Bloodworth
Hey.
and Kyle Bossman.
Hey,
Marcus
everybody.
Beer has fallen ill, but hopefully he will return soon to our lives. But it's good.
Is he living near a garbage dump or something? He's getting sick a lot.
Oh,
No,
man.
he wasn't sick before. He had,
Okay.
I think he was dealing with the wifey being sick, so maybe he got the ill. Who knows? But we were able to get kind of last minute, guys. Thanks for joining us. I know Daniel's mourning the death of his CRT, and Kyle couldn't stop watching Nintendo Vines. So I was able to. This was an interesting week. No huge releases, but there's some stuff on the horizon. But
Do you think? Sorry for a quick aside about the Vine. Do you think they had to like explain that? Just say, hey Enuma, this is what Vine is, and we just want to. It's like a video that's 7 seconds. Do you think that was a whole conversation that a PR team had to have with them, or do you think he was on board from the start?
does he
haven't even
does he
seen
already
this.
tweet?
I don't think so. No.
Then maybe not.
Yeah.
But I think Vines are somewhat picking up, maybe a little bit.
It's
been like
weird.
a year.
Yeah, because I think Vine is so dumb.
Yeah, but I did a survey in the office in 2009 if Twitter was a fad or a thing or it was going to stay, and everyone said fad.
Yeah,
and
you're
now
right.
it's
We were
like,
so
how are we
wrong.
going to get more tweets? And I'm like, Kyle, your show doesn't have your Twitter on it this week.
Yeah,
You need to put it in there.
It is mandatory
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So, anyways, but we are game trailers, and this is something I've thought about a lot, but we haven't really executed on too many times. And this is going to be some trailer talk where we talk about some of the trailers that have filtered through in the past week or so, and discuss
what's
as
cool?
much. And I've drafted a list of seven league boots of trailers.
What's cool about this is that like these are trailers that I don't think I would have clicked on otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's like
Yeah,
encouraging
Ryan-
people
Ryan
like go
is
and watch
definitely-
these trailers.
I got an eclectic mix and also
Yeah.
some things I just personally wanted to talk about, and then some things I kind of chose randomly, but then I found there was things to talk about.
I will admit that I haven't watched most of these yet. But
Yeah, Daniel was recently drafted. I am going to start with Darkest Dungeon, which I got those guys to send us the trailer, and then our compression team didn't put it up, content team didn't put it up, and then the guy emailed me, and I felt bad, and then we finally got it up, and I don't know if you guys watched this one.
I did watch it. And
This-
actually, I was surprised at how effective it was.
This game looks sick. It has kind of a board game mentality. You can kind of see the map stuff where they kind of march through the hallways. And in an email, he said he wouldn't go into much detail, but what you saw at the end was either the fight scene was either literally gameplay or highly representative of gameplay, which
Right.
is kind of, we're going to show the footage right now, but it's kind of a bunch of monsters on one side, 2D art, kind of composed like kind of a cardboard cutout on popsicle stick sort of idea, but not so comical, kind of doing things and battling it out with regular numbers and stuff, and some really great language. And I was actually really surprised to see a gun and have it be like kind of fit the world. Like I always kind of personally think of gun as this high piece of technology, but they've been around since like
Right.
the 1400s or something like that, and I thought it worked pretty well. Also has permadeath, so
One of the
down.
things that was sticking out to me is, and since this is all I know about the game, but it feels like there's some kind of morale system happening. Like people were like getting these negative numbers popping up just as like it was scary or something was going on.
Well, I thought there was damage getting done to them.
No, but there was not enemies involved, and like and when damage did get done, it was like a different colored number.
oh, I thought it was like the heals and stuff that the guy who
Oh,
doesn't
like that's
bite
his,
it,
yeah, probably.
but maybe not.
But I saw like black negative numbers. It looked like there's something to deal with, like keeping up your team's morale while you're in the dungeon. But
I'm gonna say there's no way that's a thing.
What?
Keeping up the team's morale.
no, I think it is. I think it could
Saving
manage,
throws?
manage their effectiveness, increasing your luck, something like that. Yeah.
What I really like about it is that it's a trailer that's like about four people. There's a sense of dread to it.
Yeah.
It's not four dudes being awesome and just partying and like rolling through a dungeon. It's like you have little hope in this game, and I think that's sort of refreshing about it.
Yeah, empowerment is definitely, I think, in the wake of GTA 5, there's been a lot of talk about empowerment in games, and I think that's why a lot of people are drawn to, there's a certain type of person that's drawn to like Far Cry 2 with like its jamming guns and inaccurate but still devastating effects of malaria.
Yeah.
As-
Well, I
as
mean,
know
that's
you-
what the old Killzone debate, right? Killzone 2 and the weightiness of the guns. Some people defend that. Some people think it's a flaw.
I love the wavy gun in Last of Us. I also love how this has kind of a board game feel. If anyone's ever played Dungeons and Dragons, I think Talisman's coming out now soon for Steam as well, which is a old cool like German board game, I believe. Next on the list, and I'm not sure if this is in anyone's boat, but Galactic Civilization 3. Yeah, any of you guys get to watch this one?
Yeah. What can you tell me about the previous games in this
Well,
franchise.
I thought this was an interesting trailer just because these games they're called 4X games, and they're randomly generated worlds, and God, I don't even remember what explore, exploit, exterminate, expand. That's not the order, but I think
Right.
I got all
It's
the
that
X's.
kind of
I got
thing,
all the
yeah.
X's, and those are these kind of before they're all like space games now, but back in the day, like a lot of the Sid Meier games, like in a way, Civ is sort of like that, Civilization, or like Sid Meier's Pirates and stuff like that. I just thought this one was funny that it seemed to have a real narrative tone to
Yeah.
it for a game that the worlds have like defined alien races and stuff. Also, when it looks like the humans are the bad guy, but I think it's humans when the alien says it with a Z. And I think regular humans are still cool, but I think humans should be jerks more. I always hate how we're like the one special species in like science fiction movies.
Well, it's just because, I mean, from a writer's standpoint, it's easier for viewers to have compassion for a human being.
Right.
I don't know. There's so many like old Twilight Zones where you think the human's the human, but it's not. It'd be fun. I don't know. If you know how the Klingons, like classic Star Trek stuff, like Klingons are the warrior like people, and I don't even know what the Romulans are supposed to be. I'm not a big Trek guy, but it'd be interesting if there was an alien race and they observed the humans as the warlike people instead of being like they're so diverse and different. How could we ever cope? Like, even did anyone see The World's End, the Simon Pegg movie?
Oh, I
Never
want
mind.
to.
Never mind. Don't want to get into spoilers.
I have a comment that I liked from that trailer. This is from Stiff Snake. He says, "The aliens weren't taking much cover, those stupid effing idiots," with 6 exclamation points. What I love about that is that, like, this is just like it's like an RTS game, right? Like, and just in this trailer, there are just like dumb idiot aliens with like guns in one hand doing this. Like, it's a CG trailer. In some ways, it's really good for what the game probably is, but it's also like amongst CG trailers, a bad one. Do you know?
I'm not sure. Like, the audience for this game is not going to care about this trailer. Maybe we'll get them hyped.
So,
But I don't know. It's interesting. I thought it was an okay trailer.
I liked the music.
all in
I
all.
think it was okay.
This next one I think kind of talks about things for me in a larger perspective, and it's the Assassin's Creed 4 Kenway trailer. Did you guys watch this one?
No, it's funny because I watched pretty much every piece of media for Assassin's Creed 4 the day before this trailer came out, so I was not ready to.
Well, that's my
dive
point.
into one more.
This would have been a really great like trailer. This could have been a launch trailer if they hadn't bombarded us with stuff. I don't know. I felt like it felt ineffectual. I mean, it was. It ends with a leap of faith and that the eagle screech, and it's like that feels kind of. It makes it as much as I want to play AC4. It makes it feel kind of played like the series played out, like harping on these like things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's a cool cinematic thing, but if you do it 100 times, it's like the novelty becomes a cliche, like within its own life cycle.
Yeah. I think he's an interesting character though, for sure.
And there was a hanging scene, which kind of made me think of Assassin's Creed 2.
So I'm curious, like,
But-
what they actually have in that particular trailer, but yeah,
But nothing else really leapt out at me.
different kind of backstory.
I guess I'd like to have a mini discussion about Assassin's Creed in general then. This to me is a misleading trailer because it is all about the one part of the game that is taking place in history and none of the you're going into the future, you're part of the anime.
Is that really
This is all
misleading? Because it's like a
simulation.
95% split in those games.
Yeah, because it's like, what is this game about? And it's not, to me, if you flash forward to the future and this is somebody like simulating these memories, then the story is about that person, as opposed to
So you're
like,
saying a frame story is ineffectual? Do you not like The Princess Bride?
I don't like
Do you
The
think it
Princess
should
Bride.
be? Oh, you don't watch movies. You think Fred Savage should be?
You guys are
Sick
getting
in
me
bed.
into weirdo.
Yeah, I think we may have to put a
okay,
gag order
but-
on this.
Because I
So
actually know more about this than you guys do.
But do you think it's like? Do you think the game would be a? Do you think it would be a fine game if there was no Animus and if it was just a story about pirates?
Yeah,
I think it's pretty much framed that way. That it's pretty much almost
Then why
nothing
bother?
to do with the
why
Animus.
bother jumping forward?
because
and-
some people do like it. Some people like the frame story stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
really
left
like
Assassin's
the
Creed 3
truth.
on kind of a cliffhanger. You can't really put out Assassin's Creed 4 and not follow up on what happened.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a sequel nature to it. But I mean, in the series, in a whole, yeah, they could have been individual things without the weird Matrix stuff. But it also kind of gave some like almost diegetic purpose to how you're puppeteering and why things didn't play out that well, which I can also kind of appreciate. The same way when you do Prince of Persia, and he'd be like, "No, that's not how it happened." And when you die, it's like, "Oh, I didn't die there. What am I talking about?" I can appreciate those kind of storytelling tropes as well.
Yeah, it kind of to me.
There's definitely people that hate the Animus. Are you an Animus hater?
I'm a big Animus hater because it's like I'm just playing through something that's already happened. Do you know? That's such a strange thing to me. To me, the stakes are much lower if I'm in a simulation as opposed to like all this stuff is actually happening.
Yeah, it's always been weird
But
how
the bleeding effect.
the
it's
what
always
effect?
weird to me how that like all it's sort of how like The Last of Us, like it's framed in like this real world, like you're crafting things out of things that you find. The Animus is sort of like the opposite of that. It's like, okay, now here's a justification for all of these game systems and resets and a health bar and all of that stuff.
Imagine,
That's what I appreciate.
You're playing a game and it's like, imagine you're playing a game. And I'm like, no, I don't want to imagine I'm playing a game. I'm playing a game. That part's the real. Oh my gosh, it honestly frustrates me beyond belief. I have no patience for that. Also, I think this was the first trailer running current gen. Is that true?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
I watched it on my phone. So
Oh, okay. So it looked fine, is what you're saying.
Next up, and this is the one I starred as WoW, is Nosgoth, and this is the Psionics / Square Enix return to Legacy of Kain.
Yeah,
as
I thought you said WoW, but
asymmetric multiplayer vampires versus humans.
first
thing.
comment I saw was very bitter against this game.
It looks like a cool game if it had come out in 2009. Like,
Right.
and that's not a huge knock against it.
Yes, it is.
No, man. Like Demon Souls came out in like 2009. So, did you guys watch this one?
Yes.
I watched a bit of it, yeah.
I'll let you guys take it for a second.
Yeah, well, it's I get a little bit of a flashback to Shadowrun. Remember the multiplayer Shadowrun game?
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange to me to take something that's been a very lore-focused franchise that people have been kind of wanting for a long time, and here's a multiplayer thing that probably whatever story is just kind of the trimming.
They did say there would be like an overreaching. When you win a match, it can affect the world. But yeah, it's funny because we all wanted a new. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us wanted a new Legacy of Kain game, and it's like, hey, there is this one.
And does this necessarily have to have anything to do with Legacy of Kain? I mean,
Is Amy
vampires
Hennig
versus
gonna write
humans could be any sort of
Where's
franchise.
the werewolves?
Well, so my feeling on it is that like it's actually going to be really hard to sell a Legacy of Kain game right now, and so this is a free-to-play money-making game basically. This is like it's 3-on-3 multiplayer matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're
Melee
going
versus
to
range.
they're going to monetize your weapons and things like that, and so to me this makes more sense financially. This is a smarter thing for a business person at Square Enix to do with that property. It's not the game we want, but it's the game that will make more money than the game we want.
But does Nosgoth even speak to Legacy of Kain fans? Because I mean, you might recognize it, but you necessarily draw the correlations like, this is related.
Well, no, I'm sure there's going to be like a Azrael skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, that'd be great.
I don't know.
It's cost $50 and people buy it totally.
Well, if it's sparkly, it costs 127.
Yeah.
But,
I liked it when there was the guy with wings and you can just fly and pick someone else up and fly up really high and drop a person.
yeah,
That's
I
a
mean,
fun thing to do in a multiplayer match.
Yeah.
That's fun.
There's been a lot of there's not a better word than asymmetric. Is there like a more friendly word? I'm definitely running out of fuel. But there was like a game that Finger's buddies worked on, Natural Selection, kind of like the aliens versus aliens versus humans sort of thing. That stuff's interesting. I would have enjoyed. I think I would have enjoyed it more if the vampires were third person and the
Humans were
first person. Because
Why?
I always think that's kind of interesting.
Wait, aren't the vampires third person? They show them
They're
like
both
climbing.
they're
and
both
stuff.
third person.
Oh, okay.
Unless they're only showing humans with a camera, but it looked like it was definitely gameplay. Because I always like that in Splinter Cell. It's kind of
Right.
like,
versus Mercs. Yeah.
like the weird sort of predatory versus like animal feel, like the kind of separation.
Definitely.
Next one was really short. Was the Amazing Spider-Man 2 teaser.
Yeah. Why'd you pull this one?
It's funny because I feel like Beanox is like, who is this this weird French Canadian company that keeps making Spider-Man games that no one particularly likes that much. I kind of liked it, the last Amazing Spider-Man. Like, it was okay.
Right. Yeah.
But it was really goofy. A lot of jokes, a lot of Peter Parker. This looked very serious and dark.
yes.
Well, that's
I
the
don't-
thing.
it didn't
Those
really
games
appeal to me.
change the tone pretty frequently, right?
Well, I know the first one was based on events. It was supposed to be what happened right after the movie, which I didn't see. And I'm assuming this one is going to also tie in more directly into the film, at least tangentially some way. And I just thought it was kind of a weird thing after you kind of built your last game. I mean, it's a direct sequel that was, kind of, serious things were happening, but it was still very kind of lighthearted in a lot of the way things were happening. A lot of things were happening, and it's kind of this first push is like
Yeah.
New York City's filled with zombies.
I
again,
feel like
or something.
Oh, were they zombies?
I don't know, like dark enemies.
Yeah.
I feel like Activision's handling of Spider-Man is still very
Well,
old school in terms of licensed products. You know, it's
I'm
you
just
know,
surprised
it's going to
they're
be
pushing another game.
just good enough so that people won't be absolutely pissed off if they buy it.
So actually, I want to run an idea by you. So someone once asked me like how to make like a good Spider-Man game, or like what I thought that would be. To me, like I don't think so. The reason there's like the dark zombie people or whatever they are is just to have a bunch of things for you to punch. But I think like Spider-Man's nature, like you don't in the comic books, he's not always just punching a bunch of dudes. You know what I mean? He has
Yeah.
villains. He's like I'd like a game of Spider-Man that's essentially only boss fights and things that lead up to them. Do you know what I mean? A Shadow of the Colossus of Spider-Man.
The Marvel universe never really lended itself to henchmen.
Right, yeah.
You know?
It's like X-Men works with henchmen, I guess, because you got a bunch of cool Sentinels to beat up. But yeah, I don't think that like.
Is that Wolverine?
Well, oh, this guy. I was thinking of Colossus. Just,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I think it's sort of cheap. Like I think the last game was just like, oh, there's an army of symbiotes. It's like that cheapens every single symbiote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Spider of the Colossus.
Spider of the Colossus.
I would be down.
Please make that, Beanox.
Well, actually,
dump what you have. You have
Going
to.
back to Sentinels, the same thing happens there. They get really dumbed down. They're like, oh, Sentinels are just like punching fodder. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
Sentinels
yeah.
are like really difficult to take down.
They can kill a mutant. Yeah, exactly. And you don't believe that in the games. And so I guess some of the nature of games is just like, oh, there has to be hundreds of enemies for you to fight.
Well, it's
And,
like any Superman game ever.
Yeah.
It's like this just doesn't work with the fiction.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll keep this one pretty short, but Shadow Warrior had a weird little team up with the Serial Cleanup, which is this indie game where you are the janitor in a first-person shooter. So I thought this. Did you guys?
I
So
didn't
this
get
one I
to
didn't
it.
see. You're gonna have to explain this one.
I'll just give this short. I just thought it was Shadow Warrior is this hilarious, hilarious first-person game with like a lot of bad jokes. And it was a really good. I think it's a really good team up. It was really good marketing synergy to team these two games up together. And Visceral Cleanup is you're a janitor and you like literally have to pick up like the Gibbs or Jibs.
What are you referring
Oh,
to?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
Gibbs.
When
You don't know
blow
what
up,
Gibbs
when you
is?
blow up a body in a first person jib. Yeah, thank you. Duh, man, giblets. Thank you, Chris. And then you have to like wrench. Wring out your mop and you have to mop.
So I'm
I
sorry.
think
Are you the
you're the
janitor of like a
you have
video
to
game
clean up
in a video game
yeah.
world?
So and I thought it was a good team up. This game already existed, but I'm glad that they were able to find a partner.
Pick up the
It's
body
worth-
parts, mop up the blood.
It's maybe a game. It's maybe a trailer worth watching because I don't know if it's really worth playing.
So I'm sorry. So it's called Visceral Cleanup. Mm-hmm. And it's a game about the consequences of another video game, basically.
Yeah, but they teamed up with Shadow Warrior.
That is genius.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
pretty
cool.
funny. And finally is Soma. Please say one of you guys watched this.
No,
It was
what
from
is-
last week.
Come on. What do you want from
You
us?
have no time to watch trailers. Just vines. I should have vined it.
I'm sorry. You should have put WoW next to that one. I'm sorry we didn't want
This
that
is by
Last
the
one on the
guys-
list.
This is by the guys who did Amnesia, the first Amnesia.
Oh, okay.
And that's there are other games that I don't like. Penumbra. And everyone thought Chinese Room was going to do a great job with Amnesia 2. They did an okay job with Amnesia 2. And it's like I wonder what those I think it's frictional games is up to, and they're making a really weird sci-fi horror game that looks really enticing, I would say. There's a weird kind of H.R. Geiger feel, but also kind of a like a house ripped into space feel. If that kind of can sell an idea, like the kind of can I say uncanny? We've been talking about X-Men, so
Yeah.
there's kind of an uncanny feeling in the trailer. Lots of like organic, bioorganic stuff, but not maybe as traditional as you'd imagine, but a little more kind of. Again, I kind of got a very alien H.R. Geiger sort of feel, and I'm definitely excited. Along with, I mean, I still, Chinese Room still has a lot of respect for me for Dear Esther, and I still am very interested about what is it like the Rapture.
Everybody's gone to the Rapture.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see what they've been doing with the Amnesia money and their time, and I think Soma is one to definitely keep an eye on.
So a funny thing I guess I would like to talk about on this note is it's kind of like with movies. There are some people who like just don't like scary movies, or people who don't like scary games, and they like limit themselves to good games. I'm one of these people. Like I'll never ever play that game because I don't like scary stuff.
My dad doesn't like scary stuff.
Oh,
either.
so
Yeah.
here's where I'm weird. I don't like scary movies pretty much at all, but
Yeah.
I do play scary games.
Really? What's that about?
I don't know. Maybe it's more of a control factor or an immersion factor.
Oh, like you're like it's not that thing where it's like don't go in the basement because it's you. It's like you deciding to go in the basement. You're not
Right.
frustrated by the character doing that. Is
Yeah,
that it?
I think maybe. Yeah.
There's just I don't like to be frightened.
You
And
don't
so,
like movies though.
You're right, and also
So I don't know. Your opinion's invalidated.
I'm invalidated. But isn't that a weird thing though? That like so they're working really hard at making a great game, and there's just a bunch of people out there who are big sissies who won't play it because they don't like to be scared.
Market share.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are enough people.
No,
Well,
who-
that's what's happened with
see your
Resident
point. I'm
Evil,
sorry,
right?
Not to disrespect your idea. Yeah, I think there's definitely people who weren't into horror who will pick things up just because with games there's enough novelty there. I think people that weren't into horror picked up the original Resident Evil. I think a lot of people who thought about Resident Evil being one way didn't pick up RE4 until enough word of mouth came around because they kind of had an idea of what sort of game it is. I don't know. I think you're right, but they make Madden every year, and I'll never buy it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
sports
market for
games
everything. Yeah.
is always a good analogy to go to when you talk about that stuff. It's kind of like the defining break point for genre stuff. I'm gonna kill number 3 since we went a little long, but Daniel, I think this is kismet because I think you got to play Knack
Yeah.
and Kyle's here.
Yeah.
So why don't you guys have a little conversation?
Yeah, so I was at a Sony event this week, and there are some PlayStation 4 games there, including Knack. Some other games that I can't talk anything about just yet.
Knack is the only game you can talk about.
It's not the only game I can talk about, but it was basically, Knack was there and The Witness was there, which The Witness, unfortunately, only had one little station. So I got to talk
that
to...
seems like a shame.
I got to talk to Jonathan Blow, which is cool, and hopefully we'll have that interview up soon. But Knack, what they did is they had Mark Cerny gave a presentation, and he kind of talked through some of the ideals, and it's like we thought there should be like good family-friendly game out for the PS4 launch because everyone else is doing these mature titles. And he kind of gave us like this walkthrough of a level where they cut out most of the gameplay, but they kept the cutscenes. So it was kind of strange. They kept in just enough of the gameplay so you had a sense of the flow of the level. And he talked about, like, on the normal difficulty setting, it's being made for veteran players that remember Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that. So it is actually, somewhat challenging and difficult. But on the easier setting, like, a 7-year-old who's never played a console game before can pick it up and, not be too stressed out about it. But yeah, I got to play through. They had the Gamescom demo there, and it was an interesting demo because they really just kind of jumped around through different parts of the game. You'd play like through a section, and then it would jump you forward a couple of chapters, and you play through a different section. So there's a couple of goblin fortresses that I played through, and then some caves, and then there was this part at the end where it was like you're a giant 30-foot tall Knack, and people are screaming at the sight of you and that kind of thing. And
Which I love that stuff actually. So I can recognize that Knack's a dumb looking game. Most of the people watching this will never want to play Knack. But there's some really cool things about it actually.
One thing that was interesting is, so when he first starts out, it's these relics, these weird little cubey things that make up his body.
Yeah.
And then like in the course of the story, like one of the other characters convinces him, hey, you should try absorbing ice crystals. And then like then he's able to like shield himself with ice. And then later on, like
Ice Knack.
I was able to play where I was absorbing wood.
Wood Knack.
And then the wood caught on fire, and I'm like, is there an advantage
Fire
to
Knack.
this? I'm not sure about that.
Whoa, can Knack absorb Knack?
Yeah.
There is a
Knick-knack.
second player. There's a Robo-Knack.
Can you give the dog a bone?
So Robo-Knack actually can pick up pieces from
Robo-Knack.
defeating enemies, and then he can give pieces to Knack to revive Knack.
So were you guys playing it on the Crash Bandicoot difficulty? That sounds weird.
No,
to
we're
say.
playing on the regular difficulty.
Regular?
I actually
Which
died
is
quite a
Crash
few
Bandicoot,
times.
right?
Oh,
Regular
yeah, I guess so,
difficulty
yeah,
is
yeah.
Crash
Oh,
Bandicoot
okay.
difficulty.
But yeah, so that was interesting. I will say that even though I don't think the game looks that great from either art or technical perspective, it actually plays better than it looks. There's some weird things where like you have to double jump to jumps that you think you would normally be able to make, but otherwise like it's pretty fairly tight control wise and like turn in
Do you have
terms
to
of
use any of the special stuff, touchpad or?
I didn't see any touchpad stuff.
Gyro.
Basically, you use the right stick to dodge, and then it's double jump and attack.
So is this basically kind of like a third person? I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Is it like a third person God of War for kids?
Kind of, or
I mean,
he also has
God
like
of War's third
a
person,
Sonic style like jump and homing attack type thing.
Ooh, okay. I'm not a fan of the.
I think it
homing
actually
attack.
works better than Sonic.
Yeah, it's not as weird. You can miss with it basically. One weird thing about Knack is I think it takes its world pretty seriously, which I like. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there are any like floating blocks for you to hit.
There are sunstones.
Yeah.
And you pick up sunstones to do your specials. So once
Yeah.
your sunstone meter is full,
You
then
mean
you
the
can turn
world's
into a
like consistent to its own logic?
Exactly.
Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
they've
It's
built
not a
a
game
world in there.
world.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
Okay.
like a game world.
It's not
feels like
arbitrary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a world in which a story takes place, which is something I like about that. I think that's pretty neat about it. But we'll see how it is when it comes out. It could still just be a goofy, dumb game. I like its spirit. I like that Knack is happening. Do you know what I mean?
Our live stream.
You have no. I'm down. I'll do it. I'll do 23 of those hours. I'll do it. I'll stay up. As late as
Will
I
it
can.
take you 23 hours?
Oh yeah. I guess we could probably just beat it. But apparently, to unlock all the
Boston
different
pajama
Knacks,
party.
you have to do multiple playthroughs.
Yeah, I saw there was some kind of. Oh man, what was it? Like a vampire?
Vampire
Knack?
Knack. Yeah, Vampire Knack is a thing. And a crystal Knack. There's like different Knacks you could like unlock.
Yeah,
in
and there's
parts
this
of it.
weird like social
Nosgoth.
component where like you can like see what collectibles your friends have picked up and
Yeah,
like try to
you
trade
can
with
have the
them.
ones that I have. Yeah.
Interesting.
Silly
Any
things.
any quick words on the witness,
I
or should we just wait for the interview?
would watch an interview. I mean, I'm trying to avoid actually seeing what the game is about. I just want to drop into it and just see where it takes me because I think that's sort of the idea. But yeah, I talked to him a bit just about game design and like what kinds of stuff hits the cutting room floor and how how like you bring these puzzles into context. And he talked a lot about how like the context informs the puzzle, and so like it was all about like how things flowed together. And he says that even though it's like 25 to 30 hours, it's like he felt like if they cut it down anymore, it would feel like something was missing.
That is crazy.
He's an interesting guy. If you read his blog, he'll be like, "Today I cut. I didn't like these puzzles or this style of puzzle, so 14% of my puzzles are now gone. Oh well." So he's actually been bitching a lot about DirectX 10 lately on his Twitter feeds.
Huh.
So we'll see what's going on there. But I mean, on PS4, I guess we won't have to worry about that stuff.
Did you guys watch Indie Game, the movie?
Not the entire thing, unfortunately. I fell asleep.
The most interesting part of that,
I was watching it in bed.
of Blow's part at least, was when he said how depressed
Gotta
he
watch
got that people didn't get his game. Shoot, what was it? The
Braid?
rewind- Braid. Yeah, he's like, people didn't understand my message. They misinterpreted it, and that sent him into depression. Isn't that interesting? That like people are enjoying it, but they like even if they enjoyed it and like thought it was something else, like he's just like, that's not what my game is. You
It's
idiots.
like, well, it's the what's the phrase? The writer is dead, right? Like everyone has a readerly interpretation of something, but now with internet comments,
Yeah.
you can read a lot of stuff. It's not just reviews. You can read reviews, and then you can read horrible comments underneath. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And yeah, it's like your message can't possibly mean the same thing to everyone, and like it's such a funny thing that that meant so much to him. That meant more than like, oh, they didn't like my jumping mechanics. It's like, oh, they didn't get like what I was trying to say.
I'm totally stealing this from this week's Idle Thumbs, but everyone should read. Go to the if you have a Macintosh, go to the App Store and read. I forgot what the name of the reviewer was, but read the review for Gone Home from like Upset Mom or something like that. I won't go into detail, but it's interesting from a lot of perspectives, and I think it may be fake, but it's definitely interesting.
I've never seen a tower this big.
We are now joined by one Rohan Rivas, who in a former life worked at a large retail video game store, which is no longer around. And this is a segment I would like to call Ask a Former Employee.
Sorry, what's the segment called again?
Ask a Former Employee.
I can't. There's like one word I can't hear you pronouncing.
It's unpronounceable.
Some sort of alien tongue.
It's where Cthulhu buys games under
a good
law. So Rohan, here's my question. I was driving back from San Diego once, and we stopped at a game store, and these guys were like, "Oh man, it's Quantum Break." I think it's Quantum Break. It's the the Tecmo Koei Japanese Gears of War style game.
Where it's like a
which
big
not
tower,
very
right?
It's not very good. And like, oh, this game looks so sick. And then they asked the cashier, he's like, man, this game any good? And the guy was like, yeah, bros, pick it up. And we got some used games you can buy. If someone wants to pick up a game that you know is bad, what would you say?
Well, if it were me, and I worked in this game store before the year 2000, so I think the culture back then was very, very different in a game store than it is now, and I'm talking about big game store. Me back then, I would have been completely honest with them about the quality of a game or what I thought it would be.
And wait, so what would you do now? What is the difference between that 2000?
No. Like what I would
Just
do
from his
hasn't changed,
perspective.
but
Yeah.
how the culture in these stores have changed. Back then, I wanted to work at a game store. Like I
Yeah.
grew up and I hung out at this game store reading all the strategy guides. Like the strategy guides used to surround the cash wrap, and it was like a Scrooge McDuck moment of like diving into all those strategy guides and just like rubbing them all. That
Ron
doesn't
actually has
exist
a
anymore.
giant strategy guide collection.
Which is cool.
I
yeah.
used to just stay in all the kiosks, all the gaming kiosks, like the original PlayStation, the N64, like all of that stuff. The people that used to work there and the used game phenomenon really hadn't hit yet. That was just still in its infancy.
What years
more or
did you
less.
work there again?
1997 through 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember one of my last days was right when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. And that's really dating myself, but I mean that to put it into perspective, like that's how much things have changed.
Yeah.
Back then, like the used game business really wasn't a business. They were still trying to figure it out. And the people that worked there, it felt like a a CCG store or a comic book store. Like people there were just interested in games, and you never felt the pressure. And I was never instructed or had a training manual on how to push used games or Game Informer subscriptions on people. Like that
Pre-orders?
didn't exist. Yeah.
Were pre-orders part of that back then?
No, not
Okay.
really.
Do you have a question for Rohan?
Yeah. Well, basically, my thought of if I were that employee, this one in San Diego that you just talked about, and someone is really excited to play Quantum Break, I don't want to say no. That's probably not going to be what you're expecting it to be. My impression of like games is that any game has the capacity to be fun. Do you know what I mean?
Like Pimp My Ride?
Yes,
And
exactly.
Spray.
Exactly like Pimp My Ride. So it's hard to say like, hey man, don't buy this game. Did you ever have that where it's you're like feeling guilty about bringing someone down about some excitement about a game?
No, I mean I think for me it's just like, hey, this is my personal experience with it, or this is how much I'm educated about this particular title. Take it as you will, but this is how I feel about it. That's pretty much been my perspective in the past.
Did you have a stake in the console war at that point?
Oh God.
So that would have been.
Dreamcast.
Yeah.
So were you-
yeah.
were you pushing Power Stone on people?
Fucking Blue Seed, man.
Blue Stinger?
Blue Stinger.
Blue Stinger.
Drink some Hassies.
Oh man. It was just totally different.
Would you ever? Would people? Would the classic story is would the ignorant mother come in and ask, "What should I get, little Jimmy?" And you'd be like, "Well, Jimmy should probably get a Dreamcast and this VMU."
Yeah, I mean that.
So you guys
That
you
happened.
did get
Yeah,
to
and
push consoles.
Well, I mean, we
Or
would
make
just we
recommendations.
would make recommendations, and there were. What was crazy, I actually did a mini documentary about this in college, is about the kids that were just dropped off there by their parents in the morning when we opened and stayed there until we closed at night, and those
They just
kids
played the
would-
demo units.
They just
all
played
day?
the demo units, read the strategy guides, and just hung out with us
And
all
now
day.
you're
and
a
that's-
dad.
And now I'm a father. Come full circle. But yeah, I just think it's totally different now. Every time I step foot into a game store, I feel I feel uncomfortable. I really do. Like, it's just,
And that's why Amazon gets all your gaming dollars.
yes.
Was the ESRB around in '97?
See,
Because I know by 2000, I remember watching kids get carded buying games when after I was 17, so I didn't care. But I remember like clerks arguing with kids. This kid really wanted Tecmo's Deception, I think, and he's like, "I can't sell it to you. Get your mom." And the kid was like, "I don't know." It was funny, even though he was probably only 2 years younger than me. But yeah,
the ESRB was never, or whatever it was back then, was never really
You didn't card
on our
people?
minds.
you didn't card kids for
Not that I
stuff?
can remember.
Okay.
But then again, it's like we were selling. That was the tail end of the SNES, Genesis, all that kind of stuff. In '64, like that was as realistic as it got sometimes, along with the PlayStation. So the mind share over video game violence and kind of all that.
Well,
really
by
hadn't
2001 though, like you said, GTA.
Well, by 2001, but when I had started in like '97.
So, but was it implemented while you were there? That's what I was kind of.
I can't remember.
Oh, okay. I got one more kind of '97 to '01. So I remember sometime when I was in college, if you bought a PC game, which now I think the PC game section at EB Games is probably like this big
And the
or
cases
whatever
are
store.
this
Walmart
big.
has some bigger ones, but it's all like Nancy Drew
Yeah.
stuff. That's what I was gonna say. The boxes were like this before. There's like a beautiful Gabriel Knight.
Yeah.
And then
System
sometimes when I
Shock
went to
2.
sometimes when I went to college, they became kind of smaller, and now they're minuscule. Like the disc doesn't fit inside. But any thoughts on like did you see that
yeah.
PC shelf space shrink? Did you get in like letters from the home office and be like, we're taking down these shelves, or these shelves are going over to something else?
Yeah, with the emergence of like the PlayStation 2 and all of that kind of stuff, in the past, like you used to walk in and they would flank both sides of the store would be like just PC walls, and the boxes were huge, and then you would have your console stuff kind of on the other side. But PC was definitely dominant back then from a marketing kind of sales perspective, and then yeah, early 2000s, it just kind of just shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank.
I remember actually being weirded out by the small boxes. Like I'd read it on like a game site, and then I went in. This is when I was living in Vermont, so I went into probably like Staples or something, and it was like the little tiny boxes there, and it looked so small compared to the old boxes that were still hanging around.
And then eventually all of that was collapsed into, what are they called? Those little the spindle things, those columns that you just put CD sleeves into, and they're tall, like 6 feet tall.
Okay.
That's where all the PC stuff would live, and you
Just relegated.
just
Try
just
me
change.
For a second. Just this thing.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Parasites.
Nice pin too, by the way. It was really nice.
It's covering a stain. I shouldn't have said that.
The tie is covering a stain. The pin is covering a stain on the tie.
Yeah, and Mario has a little stain
He's sun stained.
on him, and I gotta get that off. This is
he on a
I got this
skateboard?
pin from my grandmother in '88 or '89.
Whoa!
And
Oh my gosh!
I had a
that's
couple
so
more,
cool,
but I only
man.
have two now. They're kind of, yeah.
So, Rohan, was there ever a moment where you recommended a game to someone and it felt really gratifying later when that person came back and said, "I loved this game. Thank you for recommending it"?
Perfect Dark.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I do
so
remember
cool.
that specifically. I remember there was reading the because the strategy guides would always strategy guides back in the day were incredible. Like this is before. I mean, you could just go to Wikipedia.
Wiki
and just-
anything.
yeah,
Wiki
exactly.
Google.
But I remember talking because they liked GoldenEye, but they weren't really sure about Perfect Dark. Talked them into it, and they fell in love with it.
Did you have to sell them a
And-
RAM expansion pack as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. I
Most
think
likely,
so.
yeah. Worth it though. Worth it for Perfect Dark. That I think that was.
Oh
worth
yeah,
it.
and I'll always remember that because it's like, yeah, that
You-
person
like, you
feels
did, like-
satisfaction.
But you also like had an impact on that person's life in a weird way.
Maybe I don't know.
Is that bizarre?
Look them up.
Yeah,
You like it is sort of like a position of influence to be a game store employee. There's sort of a responsibility to it, which is I think never
Well,
really like regarded. You know?
No, you always hear the story where the person's rude to you, or they're like, why did you want to play that game? And then the person writes, then I knocked over the magazine rack or strategy guide rack and walked out.
I'm sorry. I always read that story.
Have you not seen
I've
the?
never heard that before.
You've never
in my
seen
life.
the.
What is that?
Oh, it's that people are rude. You know, I wanted to buy this game and they made fun of me. I tried to pre-order this game and they made fun of me. You know, I see it all the time. And then it's like, then I've knocked over the magazine rack and life was great.
No, I don't. What? I've never
Yeah.
heard that story. No, but I bet. So I bet some people like felt like they were
I'm
rude
just
too,
saying.
but like no one actually knocks over the magazine rack.
Have you ever knocked over the magazine rack?
If so, please comment in the
You're a horrible
in the comment
person.
section below. Tell us why and how good it
well,
felt.
well, we'll wrap it up. Was there
Yeah.
one last little promotional thing that was funny or anything? I know we got. I've seen Star Fox Adventures toilet paper
Well-
with hints on it.
Oh man, nothing comes to mind. However, there was our store manager got to go to E3 every year, and back then it was just kind of like this mythical thing out
Yeah,
in sunny
exactly.
California that
Oh, I'd be so
know.
jealous.
Oh yeah, we were all jealous. And one year he came back and he set his bag down. You know, I was working and impressionable youth, and he reaches into his bag and I think this is for the original AVP on PC.
Okay.
And he pulls out this life-size face hugger with a suction cup on the belly of it, and he's like, "I heard you like aliens. This is for you." And it's like, "You got this at this place called E3? I want to go so bad." Yeah, and that was one of the coolest moments.
Do you still have that? Do you still have that facehugger?
I think so. We used to hide it in college in all of our college roommates' rooms.
That's so
Just like put it underneath the pillow, put it in the washing machine. Put it in
Well,
this.
hopefully,
Anyways.
thank you for joining us, Rohan, and hopefully you can come back and regale us with other stories of retail happiness, the good times,
Yeah,
the funny
so,
times.
Haven't put a lot of thought into this.
Did anyone ever ask for Nintendo tapes?
No.
Okay.
Wait a second, actually. The way you pitched the segment to me is you told me that Rohan has a 90% approval rating or something
That
like
was
that.
on here.
What is that? So what does that mean? Like, what made you so good at that?
We just had outstanding customer service, and that was rooted in our passion for games. Not how much we could. I forget how they
See how
gauged
earnest
it.
he is? Instead of being like, I got a 90%, that, like, some asshole like me would be like, he's this earnest guy.
Yeah.
And,
No, they back then like the used game thing really hadn't taken off. I forget how they graded us back then, but I think there was some sort of corporate visit. They would do an evaluation or secret shopper.
Yeah.
And then they would
And you just
give an
crushed it,
appropriate-
probably.
probably.
Did you have this haircut?
No, I had really long hair and a Kurt Cobain T-shirt.
Whoa.
Photos.
Ooh, and I had a polo, white polo.
Can you open this?
Yep. I received a note from Ryan.
What time is it?
Time up.
The time is up
Why would you do that to me?
because you kept adding more questions, and we're hitting the end of our time here together.
I was having fun. I was having a fun
I know.
conversation.
I have to kill the fun. I'm the Fun Crusher Plus. Thank you guys for joining. Thanks to Daniel Bloodworth as well. Sorry the show is a little thrown together. And we all hope Marcus gets better and will join us again. I guess there will
Get
be
well
no
soon, Marcus.
There'll be no Annoyed Gamer this week.
No Annoyed Gamer.
But I think it's already up now, right? You can watch a bonus round from 7 years ago,
Oh yeah,
which is pretty interesting.
it's pretty fun. There's a Toy Story 3 dev diary snuck in there.
Okay. I guess we'll find out.
No, he's making fun of our website, which like accidentally put a dev diary in
Yeah,
the
I
middle.
accidentally put a Toy Story 3 dev diary.
Awesome.
In,
Our website does
but
funny
It
things.
has since been corrected, but it is a funny story now.
Funnyjokes.com.
To us.
Go there.
Don't go there.